welcome to episode 12 of the Microsoft Spotlight podcast with me, Andrew Moran, and my co-host, John Jarvis. This episode is proudly sponsored by BitTitan. Check out their website today to find out BitTitan can migrate you to the Microsoft cloud. Now, John, we'd like to introduce our first guest today, please.
Hey, Andrew. Yes, today I would like to introduce you to Sara Fennah, who, in my opinion, is the best Microsoft certified trainer out there, having worked with her last year or the year before. So, Sara, I think that was pretty high to start with, but I'd like to introduce yourself.
Well, I mean, what can you say after that? Thank you. So I've been a trainer I've been Microsoft certified trainer for 14 years, but ever since I graduated, worked in education. So originally did a German degree, taught secondary school. Quickly realised that classrooms full of teenagers were not my comfort zone. 13-year-old girls trying to teach them French was not entertaining. And I ended up in IT by accident, and here I am, training mainly Microsoft 365 products. That's really my day-to-day.
You know what I found quite funny? This is the 11th, 12th podcast now. I know it's episode 12, but I think this is the 11th time we've done this now. But I think every single person has come on and said, I got into IT by accident. That is not like, that's so common. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I basically borrowed a computer from a friend to look for something else to do once I decided to leave teaching. And he was setting up a software consultancy company, and I took a phone call, and all of us, the client at the other end assumed I was the project manager. So I was recruited as the project manager, and after, a very steep learning curve, because he had to show me how to switch the computer on that morning, here I am. I'm now teaching other people to do things a little bit more complicated than switching them on.
That's crazy.
I say you're the first MCT we've actually had on this show. And for those who don't know what MCT is, it's Microsoft Certified Trainer. So do you want to tell us a bit about the program? Obviously, you said you've gone from teaching German, now obviously you're teaching people like me and John and the big wider audience. So do you want to tell us how that started happening since you've gone from project management into being a teacher?
A Microsoft certified trainer is a trainer who holds Microsoft certificates and has their training expertise either verified by Microsoft through quality assessments, feedback forms, etc., and or training certifications. Now, obviously, being a qualified teacher, I didn't need to obtain any extra certifications once I applied for my MCT. But as an MCT, we can deliver the official Microsoft courses around the products that we're certified in. And I actually ended up here by accident. Yeah. Well, yes and no. From the project management, I was also working with graduate software engineers, and at least at the time I was working with them and the people I was working with, they couldn't really use the computer. They could program it, but writing a spreadsheet, not a hope. So I was working with them and training them, and then between projects I was doing a little bit of freelance training on the Office products as well. And obviously, as Microsoft Office evolved and became BPOS and Microsoft 365, Office 365 originally, I've gradually moved with my skill set into the more technical training. So I'm quite unusual in that I haven't come into the technical training world from a technical background, and I've moved from the Office training into the IT Pro arena. So that's not a normal career path. So I've muddled everything up.
Yeah, and I think something that you use is, you say you're born in the cloud.
Yeah, I do. I like to call myself a born in the cloud admin, because I've never been an on-prem admin.
Yeah.
I've not administered a Windows server. I've not.
I don't want to either.
It's a bit of a backward step, isn't it? No, I've not. I've not run networks, so I've really come into the administration world purely from the Microsoft 365 product.
So how did you find out about the MCT program? What kind of got you interested in that in the first place? And then why did you go for it?
Well, I had a really bad experience. I delivered an Excel course and I didn't know what I should have done. Okay, so it didn't go well. So I decided I needed to learn some more about the product, and I went and did the Microsoft Office Excel certification. So I found the certification, went for that, realized I could become a certified instructor, because at that time you couldn't be an MCT. MCT was only technical. So I became a MOUS, as they called it, MOUS, Microsoft Office User Specialist, a MOUS Master Instructor. And then I also took some project certifications, which allowed me to become an MCT. And because I was already in the instructor scheme, I became aware of the MCT and moved on. And but always freelance. So it was quite eye-opening when I realized quite what a big community there is amongst MCTs as well.
So also, do you have like your own LinkedIn group, or what's the community behind that, or is it?
There's a whole variety. I mean, as MCTs, we have regional leads, who for each geography where there are significant concentrations of trainers, there are people appointed to be effectively the go-betweens between the trainers and Microsoft, and to support trainers in finding the information they need to do the training. And they run a variety of events. They run LinkedIn groups, there's Facebook groups, and you know, we're actually running an event in the UK in October for UK MCTs, hopefully face to face, fingers crossed.
We'll see you there, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I'll send you the details.
It's like, because of COVID, obviously, you know, training has obviously come obviously a bit difficult, especially if it's your day-to-day job. Obviously, so you're used to a classroom, having attended courses in the past, you know, in that classroom, 5 days, 4 days, however long the course was, with the instructor, with actual physical machines, doing the labs. How you got around that with Microsoft? And I mean, obviously with M365, it's kind of quite easy with setting up a demo tenant, spin up an online subscription for a short period of time. But how have you found it? Obviously, that being your day-to-day job, difficult.
It was actually surprisingly easy. I mean, I've done virtual training delivery before, both technical and non-technical topics. But it was actually quite surprising to switch across. But one of the things I found is we had to kind of change the structure. You can't go with just sitting and listening all the time. You've got to bring into a lot more interactivity into it. And running quizzes virtually has been quite popular. I like Mentimeter as a tool. I know a lot of other trainers like Kahoot, and there's various others out there as well. But they have been a huge difference. And it was a transition. You know, my diary kind of emptied overnight. I came home on the 13th of March, 2020 from Dublin, where I was training, to find that my diary was empty for the next couple of months. And then everyone transitioned and we kind of picked up, and it's actually been working really quite well. I know a lot of people have found the virtual training delivery is actually as effective for them.
Yeah, I think we done the virtual. We done a hybrid one, didn't we? For those who don't know the context, I done a training course with Sara in August 2019, I think it was. So back then it was a hybrid training. So you had people in the classroom, you also had people virtually. And because I'm quite lazy, I don't want to leave the house much. I didn't want to go into London. So the virtual course that suited me down to a T basically. And I've I thought that worked really well. And as you said, you use Mentimeter as well. And I've been on virtual courses before, and they can be an absolute drag. But yeah, the engagement and stuff like that, which you use as well. And I know you use other stuff, such as you stream OBS and stuff like that. So
I do, yeah. That's how I've managed to put myself in front of Kilimanjaro here, and why my chair hasn't disappeared, because I'm using OBS Studio with a green screen. Yeah, and mixing it up as well helps keep focus. As trainers, though, it's much more tiring than being in the classroom, because you've really got to keep that energy level really high.
Yes.
I always say there's my training face, and then there's my post-training face. The collapse in a heap at
that's
the
like
end.
me all the time. But talk about Kilimanjaro. That's something you've climbed, isn't it? You've been to the top of that peak.
I have. In fact, here we go. Let me use some OBS magic and disappear. That's me at the top of Kilimanjaro with my husband. I'm the one in black. I promise it is me, pulling a very silly face because I was so happy but crying my eyes out.
Oh.
So yes, I lived in Kenya as a child. My parents moved out there when I was 2, and I don't know, it felt like I always wanted to get to the top. And then my husband went, and I couldn't go because our son was too young. We couldn't really leave him. And then one Christmas day, I said, I really want to climb Kilimanjaro. And next thing I knew, it was booked and I was going.
Oh wow. Was that train? Do you have to do a lot of training towards that? I'm a mountain climber myself.
I should have done more. I'm not the most sporty person in the world. I've always liked walking. I did my gold Duke of Edinburgh's, bronze, silver and gold, actually, totally addicted. And went to university in North Wales. So there's always been that mountain walking there, but the altitude is what gets you, and you never quite know if it's going to really hit you or you're going to be able to work through it. So when we're not in polite company, I'll give you the gory details, but I made it and I survived and I enjoyed it. But there was some mess along the way, shall we put it that way?
Yeah, we'll leave that off for the camera and for the podcast possibly. So that's obviously like a massive personal highlight of yourself. What would you kind of say is a big career highlight for yourself?
I think for a personal achievement, it was achieving the Microsoft 365 expert certification. Yeah. Because I've come from that non-technical background, PowerShell was terrifying.
I love PowerShell. It's brilliant. I've got books and books behind me of PowerShell. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous, and that's all you need to be.
I probably know too little, but I'm still dangerous. No, it's not me. I much prefer the admin interface, but then again, that's why there's variation, isn't there? But that.
Yeah, the admin interface is great, but I say obviously with something like PowerShell, it just makes life so much easier. I mean, when I was working for a big UK bank, I had to basically use PowerShell with LDAP lookup. Mm-hmm. So using old style technology, basically now, to basically query Active Directory, and like it was just to run the actual script itself against that environment took 8 hours. If I had to do that manually via a GUI, I'll probably still be there today.
Yeah,
working on hours.
It's definitely a very, very powerful tool. But if you think, if I kind of put this spin on it, I'm coming from being an office trainer.
Yeah.
And I'm using PowerShell. It's terrifying.
But I say it is a good skill to learn, even just the basics, because it's transitional across every single Microsoft workload.
Yeah. It's
in the cloud, whether that's M365 or you're going into Azure, you've got that knowledge that'll basically help you through situations that sometimes you just can't do in a GUI.
Mm-hmm. So
Go on.
sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that actual passing that certification, that was the first one I did. That was the first IT Pro certification that I took, was the expert, the MS 100 and 101. So that was a huge challenge for me. But otherwise, the fact that I'm still training after 20 years, over 20 years in the business and freelance the whole time, and most of my work is recommendation. I mean, it's the ultimate compliment anyone can pay you. So
yeah, I'll say, I know obviously one of your friends, Andrew Bethany. I mean, he's absolutely brilliant guy. I knew him through the MVP program before, knowing him as an MCT.
Yeah.
And having attended sessions of his, Microsoft events as well as user groups, it's just the knowledge that MCTs have. Is just amazing to what they can basically deliver to a classroom, especially in a user group forum. Where people obviously go in there to, understand the product a little bit more, and having an MCT who obviously has done a bit of the technical, but also knows all the training material behind it as well. Always ends up being a very good session.
Yeah, Andrew is actually one of our regional leads for the UK, so he's an excellent person to pick up as somebody, as a good example of the MCTs and knowing the program. And I don't know how long he's been an MCT for, but longer than me.
Yeah, because obviously we bumped into each other when I was talking to Andrew, because I was asking Andrew about a particular issue that I was having with a Windows 10 issue, our client, and he then basically pointed me in the right direction, actually put me in touch with Michael Nealis, who's now left Microsoft. And just because he had that relationship, I was managed to speak to someone who's completely knowledgeable about exactly the issue I was having, and help me get through it. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
So, because obviously this podcast is all about women in tech, I'm going to ask you, obviously, from your experience and your time being within the MCT program, how many women actually are part of that program?
It depends where you look, to be honest. Generally, if you're looking at what we call the end user training, the Microsoft Office components, the majority of people who work with those products and deliver those kind of courses tend to be female. Not all. But then when you start moving into the more technical sphere, the IT pros courses, you tend to find mainly male trainers. And I'm ashamed to say, you do sometimes get delegates who, when you walk into a classroom, be it physical or virtual, do say, "Oh, are you the trainer, but you're female?" And are surprised. I think it's good that we can still surprise people, but I think it's sad that they're surprised that a woman would have those skills. But
is it surprised that they've got you? That they think you've got those skills, or is it just surprised that that a female's actually there presenting and they're just not used to that? Maybe
it could be either. I don't really dig into it, because as far as I'm concerned, I think my certifications and the course speak for themselves. Yeah. And my job is really to deliver the training, to do a good job, and make sure they're not surprised next time.
Yeah. As I said, I think you're obviously not obviously, but you are the only female trainer I've had within going through the provider we have. I think I've done about 3-4 courses. But you're head and shoulders over the rest of them, to be fair. So
and that's not necessarily a gender thing, No. I know there's some, as you well know, there are some great trainers. I mean, Andrew's highlighted Andrew Bettany, who is obviously I say from his name you would assume he's male, and you'd be correct. But it's still, IT is still predominantly a male world.
Yeah, I think the kind of thing that you have, which is kind of a bit of a crossover, I would say kind of like the teaching world is predominantly female, from my experiences, but you're going into a world of teaching in a tech world which is predominantly males. So you're kind of a mismatch of of stereotypes in work.
Yeah, I kind of prove and disprove virtually all of those. Yeah.
Is that even in my son's primary school? Literally, nearly every single teacher there is a female teacher.
Yeah, see, I always think that we should work to what we enjoy, and I really enjoy what I do. And I think that speaks to me as a person rather than me as a gender.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I love helping people. You know, it doesn't matter if I get through all the objectives by 3 p.m. and we can leave early. I want people to leave my courses knowing more than they came in. I always say, if you leave with more knowledge and more confidence in the product than you had when you started, then I've achieved what I set out to achieve. And maybe women are genetically more likely to have that kind of personality. I don't know. This isn't I might be female, but I'm not a geneticist. I'm not an expert in that area, but I think you do tend to find the personality suited to the kind of nurturing style of training, if you like, is typically more female. And I think that's why you tend to see the split. How would you
encourage more women to become MCTs who are not just MCTs as such, but stepping away from the end user training and doing more of the technical?
I'm not a person who subscribes to the fact that we need to proactively encourage any gender into any profession. I think we need to ensure that the doors are open and that people see that the doors are open. And one of the ways we can do that is by showing that people do successfully do the job. Now, I do successfully work as a IT pro trainer. I am female. John's paid me a number of compliments today, so I obviously do a good job. And I think by being visible and by showing it's possible, that's how we can encourage people to go for things that they want to go for. But I worry if you try and be too proactive, you push people into roles they don't want to go into.
Yeah, I understand.
Just with that, kind of, have you ever thought about actually going into a technical role or starting down that technical role avenue? Because obviously you said you've passed the MS 100 to 101. I know you've done all of the SC exams as well now, the MS Teams exam. Have you ever thought about going down the technical route?
You mean a more hands-on admin role,
like delivery,
role?
or admin, or yeah.
I just love the training. I really enjoy the experience of getting to the end of the course and seeing, the light dawn in people's faces, the eureka moment, or talking to people 6 months down the line going, that little gem? Well, that saved me X number of hours. That's so rewarding that I don't know if I'd ever give up the training side of things. Maybe a bit more of a mix.
Mm-hmm.
I do a little bit of consultancy as well and some SharePoint development.
Oh, don't say that word.
Well,
okay. You're not allowed to say SharePoint on this one.
SharePoint site building, shall we say, rather than development, because I'm not a coder in any way, shape or form.
No, Andrew banned the word SharePoint from this podcast. It's not allowed.
No, to be fair, SharePoint's not for me, and I've said it many times in this podcast. But no, I respect people that basically have gone down that route because it is a skill within itself, understanding how SharePoint all hangs together. And obviously, myself, my background is Skype for Business, it's Microsoft Teams. SharePoint's part of that, and I have to, bite my tongue and get off it weird, don't I? So, but yeah.
I was going to say, how can you claim Teams if you're not willing to at least pretend SharePoint exists under the hood?
I say my way of accepting SharePoint, shall I say, is removing the O from the word. So it's just basically sharing points in a pub or in a bar, wherever. That's the way I accept it. But no,
Okay.
I respect anyone that does SharePoint. I mean, I say I've worked in the IT arena now since I was 17. That's like 18 years ago now. Saying that makes me feel old, but hey ho. You know, whatever you do, and how Microsoft is basically built now, you know, you need to have a skill set that basically covers a whole of the M365 suite. You can't just be a specialist anymore. I mean, you are going to get them specialist people, and you know if that's what interests you, being dedicated to that particular role, a particular product, then fully go for it, or go back to the old ways now, which people are doing, becoming more of a generalist across the field.
Yeah, I think people within Microsoft 365 world tend to be more devices, more Exchange, or more SharePoint. But as you say, we're pretty much covering the full gamut at some depth, at least.
Yeah, I say before the world of obviously Office 365, you know, as soon as it started getting forced upon us, you know, you had them silos of, yeah, I'm an Exchange person, I'm only going to deal with Exchange Online, everything else I'm just going to basically ignore. But then as time grew on and the products basically started merging, the lines getting blurred, it's like, yeah, you have to basically be a specialist in everything.
Yeah, I think even in my experience, I think I started off with the Exchange route. Then I was like, oh, I've just got bored of Exchange now. Let's move on to something else. And then now I just kind of, I think I'm definitely more of a generalist now, because I do a lot of Intune, Teams, Exchange, OneDrive, everything under the sun except for SharePoint.
I can't persuade people to love SharePoint, can I? But that's how that was kind of like my route into the server side, because I was working with Project Server. The project I was on, the project lead said, oh, look, there's this new product called BPOS coming out. Let's go and find out about it. You know SharePoint. Do I? Okay. Well, you've been using it. All right. Okay. Fine. Off we go.
Yeah, the good old standard. You've used it once, therefore you're an expert.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a lot of time for SharePoint. Sorry.
So anyway, if people don't really know, you are very active on LinkedIn. You're active. You've got your own blog and stuff around the training and in the Microsoft world. Kind of is that kind of like quite a usual thing? I think you're the only person I've really seen who's really active on that. What I quite like is I shared it. I shared the post and stuff, was your breakdown of a course and where to look things up on Microsoft Docs and stuff like that. Would you say that's a suitable way of learning? That might do yourself out of a job here, but is that a suitable way of learning and going through, or yeah?
So what you're referring to is the MS 700 blog I did, wasn't it, with the breakdown of the materials and where you can get all the information. I think everyone learns differently. I personally don't usually get the luxury of attending a course, which is quite sad because of what I do. But being freelance, it's quite a challenge to actually sit on a course. So I personally prepare for courses I'm delivering or certifications I'm looking to take by going through the topics and finding references and pulling the information together. I think if you're quite knowledgeable about a subject, then sometimes the course can feel quite heavy and quite a big time commitment. And therefore, having a list of topics that you can go and just cross-reference is quite helpful.
Yeah, I quite like that way as well, to be fair. Going through the docs, looking through docs, and also we have access to Extreme Labs and courseware marketing and stuff like that. So I like to do a bit of a cross between them all. And that's kind of how I've managed to learn quite a few of the recent exams I've done, is that way. But if I'm going to say, if you haven't seen that, then people listening, definitely take a look at it. It's really helpful, especially if you're looking for the MS 700 exam. Yeah.
There's quite a lot of people who do the exam breakdown in their blogs. There's quite a few out there if you go looking for them. But realistically, I think if you were going to do something, if you're going to prepare for an exam, any of the Microsoft exams, I would always recommend, however you get to the point of being ready to take the exam, when you think you're ready, go through that list of all of the objectives, tick them off, the ones that you know, and the ones you don't know, go and search for that title in docs.
The ones you don't know, guess.
Well, I would say,
I
mean, the pass mark is 700 out of 1,000 points. We all know that they're not equally balanced, each question. You really want to be about 80% confident. Yeah. You want to be confident in 80% of the topics before you take the exam. That would be my top tip for anyone preparing for an exam.
Yeah, I have a friend who he was a stationery salesman this time last year, this time in March, stationery salesman. COVID happened, and obviously I think it was made redundant or something along those lines. And he's always enjoyed IT, and I think he'd done a couple of Saturday jobs and stuff when he was a lot younger. And he said to me, "What should I do?" I was like, "Well, first of all, go off the AZ 900, because he quite liked the look of Azure and going that way." Mm-hmm. So he's now going through. He's done the AZ 900. I helped him along with that, and then he's now doing the AZ 104. So he's keeps on doing the practice exams over and over again. I was like, just go and do the exam itself, and go from there.
But isn't it a great experience to help someone get that certification? Isn't it really rewarding?
Yeah, but I'm trying to get him to just do the exam now. I'm just like, the thing is with Microsoft exams is I think there is a way to do them. I think you can have a good idea of what the course is and kind of what's on there and the technology behind there and still pass it without. But the way they kind of word stuff and how they put the answers, I think are quite sometimes a bit obvious.
Some of it is. I think if you've got a really good underlying knowledge, and it comes back to the point Andrew was making, that kind of IT generalist knowledge, if you've got that, then there is part of it that's the skill of taking the exam.
I think one of the challenges I'm having with some of my colleagues at the minute is some of them obviously come back from the exchange perspective, some come from other technical backgrounds, but having that experience in a lot of the cloud stuff, they've not really done it, and they look at what's in, say, MS 101, for example, when it starts covering off a bit of security, a bit of Microsoft Intune, and so it's not their normal day-to-day and what they've done in the past. So it's like that kind of puts them off a bit trying to take their exam.
Well, I always say that MS 101 and MS 100 are the consultant level exams. Although the numbers would indicate it's the introductory ones, they're very much not. It's obviously the fundamentals that would be the introduction. But I always tell people to take the associate level exam, the 2-star exam, in the field that they're after. So the exchange, a specialist, I'd tend them down that route. I would then try to encourage everyone towards the security exam.
It's become really big now, isn't it, security? Especially say you've got one of the questions I'm going to ask is, what's the difference between someone doing MS 500 and now doing all the role-based security exams, so the SC?
The SC. So the MS 500 looks across the whole of the Microsoft 365 suite, across identity, information protection, security, compliance, right the way across. But you're a Microsoft 365 person. You're not a security person with that. So when you start going into the security exams, say the identity and access administrator, so the SC 300, that's focused very heavily on Azure AD. In fact, it's basically Azure AD, but it's not just Azure AD as it relates to Microsoft 365. It's taking it further.
Yeah, because they go into Azure portal and stuff like that as well with that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the external apps and
Yeah.
you know how it links into.
I winged that exam. Completely winged that exam.
Well, I would be quite happy to say I still don't know how I passed the SC200, the Security Operations Analyst, you know, all of the Azure Sentinel playbooks and so on. I won't be teaching that one in a hurry. I always think if I'm going to teach a topic, then I need to not only be able to teach what's on the course, but I need to know that little bit extra as well.
Yeah, because you're always going to get smart asses. Sorry, leave that out. Like me. on a course that I'll ask a question which is a bit above and beyond what's probably on there.
Yeah, I mean, you always get people coming to the course who want to know something slightly outside of the course. You're doing a Teams admin, you get asked about the word I'm not allowed to say, the SharePoint word. You get asked about the Office apps. You get asked about Intune, which isn't in the Teams admin course. So you've got to be able to go outside of your topic area if you're going to do a good job.
Yeah. So you've got to be very, as a trainer, be very broad across all the different areas and understand at least how it all kind of works together. So
I have certifications that I won't teach.
Yeah. So how do you go back a bit? How do you kind of prepare for a new course that you teach? What goes in behind that?
So it depends, because I do custom courses as well as the official Microsoft courses. So for one of the official courses, there's always the structure of the course. You always know what the topics are. Usually the materials are available before you deliver the course. Sometimes you only get a week, sometimes you only get a weekend. Depends on the scheduling. That's a little bit more of a challenge. But if I'm delivering a Microsoft course, I'll go through, first of all, the PowerPoints that they give us, because they give you the top level overview, and then dig into the manual if there's something that I personally am not confident as to what the PowerPoints are getting at. Obviously, to deliver these courses, I've got to have passed the exam as well. So where they tie up with the exam, I've obviously done my exam prep beforehand, and you usually get the exam objectives beforehand. So I've gone through those, and any areas that I was weak in the exam, I'll go and study up a bit further in those as well.
Okay. I've got one last question before we're kind of running quite close to time.
Sorry.
Is obviously being a trainer, how do you deal with the challenges of Microsoft being Microsoft and updating and releasing things on a weekly, hourly basis?
My favourite word is currently. Currently, it does this. Tomorrow. No, in all seriousness, I do put time into it. Every morning, I check the message center in Microsoft 365. I have RSS feeds looking at the roadmap that delivers an update into Teams on a daily basis for me.
So it makes me laugh because like whenever I see an RSS feed, it's either from one of you two. So both of you do it.
Yeah, because I use Power Automate to basically scrape. I think a website called Roadmap Watcher.
Exactly, Roadmap Watch, RSS feed, Power Automate into Teams. Comes in about 2:30 in the morning. Check it every morning as I'm eating my breakfast.
The only thing I found with just basically using the raw RSS feed from Roadmap Watch is it doesn't render very well into Microsoft Teams. So I've actually basically used Power Automate to put it into Teams, and it actually puts it in a proper table format, and then I kind of like copy it out and then post it to my blog every time I get a new update. Yeah,
personally, I don't like the RSS connector, the formatting of that into Teams. I also run it through Power Automate. And there are some, if you're not a Power Automate fan, there are some great templates for picking up an RSS feed. Just tweak one of those.
Yeah, it's really simple to do. It's like
super easy.
Yeah, so if there's an update out there, I normally get it for one of you two, to be fair.
Or you could follow me on LinkedIn and Andrew, and we'll post it all out for you. You know.
There's even a link to like my category on my blog, so you can basically subscribe to that and then just basically get it into your email then.
There you go. I must admit, I pick and choose the things that I find interesting, or I think people who I interact with will find interesting. But I also use the sync from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center into Planner.
Okay.
And from that, I assign myself tasks for when features are due to be released. And I'm an addict to Microsoft To Do, I'm sorry. But it then pops up to the top of my list and shows me, this is due now. Go and check it out, see if it's there.
I love Microsoft To Do. I'm trying to convince my partner to basically use it for me. So every time she wants me to go and do like a little like shop or something, just put it into the to-do list and I'll go and grab it. But right, Sarah, thank you so much for being on our show today. I mean, it's nice to have an MCT on and obviously explaining a bit of the program and obviously how it all works, because me and John have recently become MCTs. So getting that knowledge from someone that's been in the game for quite a long time now, it's very helpful. Now people that basically listen to this today will basically have a bit more insight on how an MCT works, how you can basically keep yourself up to date and up to current with what's going on in the world of Microsoft.
Yeah, and for all MCTs out there, do reach out to us all on LinkedIn. I know that's a horrible phrase in English, but do get in touch. We, as trainers, we love to help. That's why we're in the profession. So, I'm more than happy for people to get in touch with me and ask me any questions. I'll do my best to help you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've used today just to ask questions that I wanted to ask because I was generally interested.
I think we both have to be fair on this one.
But yeah, thanks Sarah for coming on today's podcast. Yeah, really appreciate it, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. Please make sure you hit that like, share and subscribe button to help us promote our message. You can also follow us on Twitter at MSFT Spotlight, and we're also on LinkedIn, the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. And finally, we'd like to tell you a little bit about BitTitan and thank them for sponsoring this podcast.
Remote migrations start here. Let Migration Wiz do the work for you. It's fast, secure, and 100% SaaS, which means you can migrate at any time and from anywhere. Migrate mailboxes, documents, public folders, personal archives, or even Microsoft Teams with just a few clicks. No special training needed and no customer downtime. When the work matters, choose Migration Wiz.